Hello, I'm Jenny Klotchko. I'm in Ukraine, Kiev, and today I talk to Iryna Prudkova. She's a journalist, filmmaker, and producer.
Good day, Iryna.
Hello.
So, you live in the war since 2014.
Yeah.
So, how does it feel to live in the war for the past 10 years, not 2, like the most of Ukraine?
Some people in Ukraine have not lived in the war for these 2 years. Well, how is it? The war came to us in the 2014th. We lived in Mariupol then. And even after the Maidan, the question in our family did not arise whether we were for the Maidan or against it. We stood up to defend the country during the Maidan, and we still do. What to tell? We volunteered, always went to the front lines with my daughters, and filmed documentaries. We worked as journalists, all journalists in our family. Well, my 2 daughters are also journalists. They grew up on television. I was doing journalistic investigations in the Legal Question program on Mariupol television for 12 years. I worked with numerous foreign organizations at the front line, with all top media. Back in the 2013, during the Maidan, I said there would be a war. No one believed me then. They called me a political provocateur. I said that there would be a war. When it started in 2014, I said there would be a full-scale war.
Why did you think so?
Well, because we saw how all this developed during the so-called First War in Donbass, my daughters and I were already in the right sector. Our commander was Andriy Cherven. We are very good friends with his family and did different kinds of things, including volunteering, informational assignments and others.
So, you lived in Mariupol, you are ethnic Russian, and you just said that you were close to the right sector, a nationalist right-wing organization of Ukraine. How does it all fit together? How did it happen? A person like you. And there's a stereotype. People are from Mariupol. They are Russian-speaking, they are pro-Russian, and they are more in a cultural and media space of Russia, not Ukraine.
Listen, even now in Russia, it is possible to go to the internet and get the information you want, right? And they came to my house. All my Russian relatives disowned me. I have no Ukrainian roots because all my grandmothers, grandfathers and great-grandmothers were in Russia. The enemy came to my house and there was no question. And why in the right sector? I went to the front line with my family to many battalions. I still have many friends from these battalions. We are with them even now in Donbass, with those with whom we started at 2014. Why in the right sector? And what's the difference? Andriy Cherven called me. They were at Donetsk airport then and said, "I was given your details and I was told you can help us to organize everything there." We said, "Sure, we will do everything." And we tried to do everything to make it convenient for the boys to be at the station we prepared after they left the Donetsk airport. I delivered the weapon there for them. When Andriy arrived, we had already prepared. He and the boys settled in. Then, our Ukrainian volunteer army was already there. Later, when the right sector collapsed and Cherven remained with Yarosh, we also remained in the 8th Separate Bat, Ukrainian volunteer Arata. We now have Maradona as a commander. It's already part of Defense Intelligence and Special Agents. On the first day, I remember how the boys stopped by. Cherven arrived, and he invited us to his place. We came with our daughters and we talked. He looked at us. He did not ask why we spoke Russian. He did not have this question at all. He never mentioned it. Moreover, when we had a Ukrainian conference in Mariupol, and Andriy was still alive at that time before the invasion, he said from the stage, "We didn't care what language anybody speaking because the first people who came to us, who helped and organized everything, these were Russian-speaking volunteers." It was straightforward for me. We did our work. I collected information and helped to conduct work in the occupied territories, but I am still doing it. We were looking for the missing missing, and we are doing it now. I freed those who were in captivity and retrieved ammunition. Well, that's all. Weapons, bullets for Azov, Kyiv 2, and Right Sector. Right Sector, because they respected Andriy and accepted him as their commander. We were always in touch 24/7. We were always ready to assist if help was needed.
I have mentioned that you are from Mariupol. Do you keep in touch with people who stayed in Mariupol? Of course, there are videos from the Russian side in the media, and it is their narrative of what is happening in the city now.
What can I say? I don't talk to the people of Mariupol about everyday life matters. I talk with purpose. I have entirely different assignments that need to be done in the occupation, so
For instance?
I collect information. What, where, and when. I will pass it on to whoever needs it. Everything you see in the occupation is also with our help. Something explodes there. Something is destroyed. Look, the people who stayed there deliberately will tell you how beautiful everything is now in Mariupol, right? But I don't communicate with these people anymore. I communicate only with those who help me with my work there. Well, those who help there in the work will never tell you that it is nice there because there is such a pile of problems that need to be solved. For example, people who do not have medical care. They have now opened a medical center, and the Russians opened it. But I know that only some can get to that center, because only a few people want to get a Russian passport. Yes, you have the right to seek medical help in this passport center that they built, but only if you have a Russian passport and a Russian health insurance certificate.
Medical insurance?
So people cannot get a pension now. I understand that some people can get a Ukrainian pension. There are some. It is pennies, and you cannot live on it. And that's why people... I understand those people who currently support Ukraine, but are forced to get a Russian passport to survive somehow. Therefore, I want to say that not all those who receive a Russian passport are separatists, or all those who are waiting for the Russians. No, it is not. Many families of our Ukrainian military remained in Mariupol.
Till now?
Yeah.
Why are they staying there?
Because they could not leave. It's a painful question. Even though I have goosebumps now, I'll tell you. We had a lot of boys who went to war in the 2014 or joined the Maidan in the 2013 in Mariupol. When the full-scale invasion started, they didn't know what happened to their families because they had no contact with them. They were already in the fighting. The families did not know what had happened to their daughters and brothers. Families did not know what happened to the soldiers at the front line. I had to look for those boys and find out what happened to them. So their families that stayed in Mariupol were aware of the situation. Sometimes they would contact me asking for a favor. The guys were calling me from the front line. Irusya, find him because we can't. There is no connection. I don't understand what's wrong with my family. They could no longer evacuate them. It was already not possible to leave the military unit, or it was not possible to leave that unit and the place where they were located. And that's why many of them didn't have the opportunity to evacuate their families. For several months, I was looking for families of servicemen in Mariupol to give the guys information on the front line about what had happened to them. At the same time, I was looking for our fighters, who were not in touch, to inform their families in Mariupol. Where are they? How do they do?
I can't imagine. Mariupol, it seems to me, it is for everyone in Ukraine. We all have such a deep wound that it does not heal. It bleeds, bleeds and bleeds. And you are telling me now, to be honest, I can't imagine how to live in this all the time.
That's 10 years.
It's inhuman.
Our local authorities in Mariupol have been pro-Russian since the time of the Revolution of Dignity. I remember how, in 2014, I came to the police station for filming. I had a journalistic investigation. It was a tough story, and the policeman sitting behind the glass started excitingly shouting on the phone, "My God, Crimea was annexed, and now we all will be in Russia. Soon we will have a Russian passport." It was like he had some kind of sexual orgasm. I was just sitting on a chair, waiting for them to take me to the office, and I just wanted to kill him. Because since 2014, we went to all pro-Ukrainian rallies. We were beaten up by police. The separatists were sent to scare us off. Those criminals came to my daughters, one of whom was still a minor at the time. God, what's his name? It's the guy from the so-called DNR, Chechen. His people were sent to terrify us.
Who is he? Separatist?
Yes, to deal with my family. The neighbours did not let them in. They said that I was at work. They arrived and said that Iryna had forgotten her microphone after the filming. The neighbours saw it didn't look right and they sent them away. Because those people came with weapons, in military uniform in the 2014. The neighbours did not let them in. They knew that my daughter was alone at home, and they said that I was at work. Go, give her the microphone on the TV channel. We were constantly threatened. It has been like this since the 2013. Those who joined the Revolution of Dignity in the 2014 were always under great pressure. There was a small group of us for Ukraine at the TV channel where I worked in 2014. Roughly it was 10 out of 100 for Ukraine. We were working on Akhmetov's channel when Akhmetov seized the Ilyich plant and everything that belonged to him. The TV channel also ended up with Akhmetov. There was always such psychological pressure on us to work for Russia and the DNR. Those who refused to do so were bullied there. People with weapons came to me to talk because our management met the DPR militants with open arms. They once told me, "Take the trident, Ukraine's state symbol, off your office wall."
Ukrainian trident?
Yeah. The trident has been hanging on my wall since the 2014. My bosses told me, "Take it out because people come to us and they don't like it very much." I say, "People come to you, and I do not work for these people." And we reflected the patriotic line on the channel as best we could. We even managed to cover stories on the right sector. Because I am a feisty girl, I could make a fuss and reach out to international organizations. Everyone knew I could reach out, even to America or New Zealand, and it didn't matter who. But I will raise this issue. We managed to cover patriotic stories in 2014 because we understood that if we were contacted, it would raise such a hassle that it would hardly be unnoticed internationally.
In addition to your journalistic career, you were very actively involved in the production of films.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to talk about Mariupolis-2. I saw this film in London at the Barbican Centre. You remember, I wrote you about it then. You know, I was afraid to go to watch this documentary because living in London, you can't hide from this war. You don't stop being haunted by nightmares, you don't sleep, you worry about your country because it is your country. I understand this is not comparable to people who live in Ukraine, and it is probably ridiculous for them to hear, but this is my reality. And I was impressed with this film. It was difficult to watch.
Well, everything made by Mantas is difficult to watch. Even the first Mariupolis. I worked as an executive producer on both the first and second films. And I want to say that when I watched the first version of Mariupolis, I said, "Mantas, it won't work. Either we make it dynamic or I don't take part in it." And he redid it.
Well, I was warned and I prepared myself for this kind of film. But what struck me, the events in this documentary are happening mainly in the basement of the church, a religious organization. And the director who filmed all these events was there all the time. So the viewers can see what people were saying, what they were doing during constant attacks and shelling on Mariupol. I was struck by how we, as humans, changed when it comes to serious danger for us, and when death is very, very close and you don't know if you live to see the end of today. I have never personally been in such circumstances, and this shift in our human behavior that struck me the most. Considering that this is your hometown and you are familiar with people, was there anything that surprised you or impressed you when the film Mariupolis-2 was ready?
I know a man who has been the pastor of this church since the 90s. Only one scene struck me in this movie. How can you throw people out on the street because you're already tired of keeping them here, right? I was shocked when I saw it. I had already discussed this with Anya 100 times. times, how to tell people when there is bombing, and it was carpet bombing, such as in Aleppo and Grozny, that we are already tired of you. He doesn't say openly that they are tired and that he can't keep them here anymore.
It was about food, and there was not enough food for all of them.
Yes, and kick these people out into the street with children, wounded, older people who were left without a home with these animals. It is what struck me the most. I was not surprised by this because even in the 1990s, these people had a bad reputation. They were all bandits in the 90s and became pastors. I have many such friends, but I know that those pastors who have been bandits since the 90s and had done everything, including murder, I don't know who would have been able to do that. To throw these people out into the street. It is probably the most violent scene in this movie. This is the only thing that impressed me so much.
They turned to you to organize the volunteer mission after Mantas contacted you and said, I want to go to Mariupol again.
Yeah.
So, from the moment they wanted to go there to the moment you found out that he was gone.
Mantas was a great friend of our family. Mantas and I were very close. He was one of those extraordinary film directors. He was one of the best friends of our family. When there was a full-scale invasion, he called and said, let's take the children, go alone. But my daughters, my husband and I said, no one will go anywhere. Everyone will defend the country. He said, I will send you money and everything you need. Leave because there will be trouble. I said, I know that there will be trouble. We knew this before the full-scale invasion, so we left on the 24th. He was together with Anya. She is from the Luhansk region. They were in Africa then. I don't remember in which country. Well, it doesn't matter. Mantas said he wanted to shoot a sequel to Mariupolis and make Mariupolis-2. Anya told him, there is a war going on in my country too. And I will go with you. You will not go alone. When they had already agreed that they were going, Anya would not let him go alone. Then he happily called me and asked, can you prepare everything for me? I said, I will prepare, but you understand what you are doing. You understand that you may not return. Mantas said, I understand. Even before talking to Anya, he called me and said he wanted to talk to her about this. But I hoped this would not happen because I was so worried about my friends back then. Yes, and I understand they could not get out of there. Not to get out. Not her. Not him. When he said that he had talked with Anya, she agreed to go with him. I said, how come? Do you understand what responsibility you are taking on? You may not return, and even then your beloved woman, your wife, might stay there. He said, yes, I understand, but this is her choice. Well, I said he had lost his mind. We started the preparations. We all were involved, my husband and my children. Everyone had their job to do.
How long did it take to prepare?
I will tell you now. So, I think we already sent them from Lviv on the 14th of March. We met them from the bus on the 14th of March. They had already been sent from Lviv. I started the preparation. I talked with him on the 24th of February. 3 days we drove to Lviv from Mariupol in traffic jams because everyone who could be leaving the country was going. We were heading to the west of the country. We still had my husband's parents, my niece and a small child. No one gave us more children, and we are without things, because we do not know how many things the parents will have or how many things the child will have. We left. We had been in touch all this time, and he told me he wanted to do it. If I'm not mistaken, Anna's birthday is on the 2nd of March, and on the 3rd of March he said, that's all, we're finally leaving, and on the 14th we already sent them from Lviv, if I'm not mistaken.
So about 2 weeks.
We prepared everything. My nephew bought me a car, on which Mantas was supposed to go to Mariupol, to give it to my family, who stayed there, my brother's family. There were 7 or 8 of them left there. My daughter-in-law, her relatives and children were there under aerial bombardment. And they could not leave in that small Lada car park there. Mantas had to get there on this minibus. We filled him with the humanitarian aid that I went to Poland for. We got bogged down with humanitarian goods. All this had to be taken to the people of Mariupol. Well, It was like one of the legends that he goes here and there on an international mission that delivers humanitarian cargo to the people who remained in Mariupol. My nephew bought it, and he filled the car with fuel. My husband had already done everything that was needed to mend it. We also had a garage in Mariupol, where military vehicles were repaired from the front. We had to calculate their entire path. There were already Russian checkpoints. I had to adjust to these volunteer caravans that were driving for people. And I had to, not for me, but for our family, who prepared all of this at every step, where Mantas and Anya stayed to spend the night or refuel somewhere. Anyway, we also had to calculate all this: where they stay, where they spend the night, where they eat, and what things need to be done to reach Mariupol without problems. And it was 24/7.
When did you find out that Mantas was taken in captivity and then he died?
On the second day it happened. On the 27th of March, he was taken prisoner, and on the 28th of March, I found out about it. I have been in touch with them all the time. I coordinated it. Well, our whole family coordinated the approach of volunteers with whom they can leave, who can come to them and bring something. I had to know where they were, what they were. I also asked our soldiers staying there for the time being to do the same. But at that moment, they told me, "Darling, we would be happy to help, but already in this mess, you don't understand where our army was and where the enemies were. You can come under the fire of your people." Then, the Russians could have been sitting there. On the 28th of March, when Mantas was leaving, they went to pick up the people who needed to be evacuated. Anya and I have a video where he goes to the address I wrote to him. People who needed help had to leave or deliver something. He and Alexander, with whom he was, they were taken prisoner. The people who were with them waited all night under air bombs for Mantas to be released. They asked the Russians to let him go. The Russians were there, and our local separatists were there, and they did not release Mantas. In the morning, at 6 a.m., Alexander told the people that we would leave Mariupol. They asked, "How is Mantas?" He said, "Mantas will be taken care of," or something. When they left the Russian checkpoint on the 28th, they called me and said that Mantas was captured. It was the last 2 days that we were not in touch. I asked, "How about Anya?" And they said, "Anya stayed."
Iryna, how did you find out about Mantas' death?
When our family discovered that Mantas was in captivity and Anya remained to look for him, we started our investigation because we could not get hold of Anya. Those people who left with Alexander, I started round-the-clock negotiations. Where were they? How did you go? Where did you get it? Where did you sit that night? What street was that? What house was that? And which apartment was it? Which entrance? My husband and his parents lived next to this house. My husband figured out what kind of house it was, what street it was, what kind of entrance it was, and what kind of apartment it was. Because Anya was not a local, she is from the Luhansk region, and her native territory is also occupied. She did not know Mariupol. Therefore, only those there then could give this information. The people Alexander and Mantas brought out. Anya got in touch on my birthday on the 1st of April. Well, what kind of birthday was it? You understand, yes, it did not feel like a celebration. We were all at work to find Anya and to find out something about Mantas. I was also helped by the guys who stayed there, at least to see who is now in that house, maybe to arrange for Mantas to be released. At that time, we did not know that he had died. On the 1st of April, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I received a call from someone else's number. I picked up the phone and heard Anya. She said, "I found him, but he died." And I said, "Where are you?" You see, there was no time to cry then. You had to act to understand what to do next for Anya. The further it is, the more it hurts. Anya said, "I'm in the morgue now. I found him, they killed him, they tortured him." As it turned out later, his skin even had the fractures of his...
Bones?
Yes, bones, because they were breaking Mantas' body. We worked together when he was shooting the first Mariupolis before he met Anna. He also was working with Iryna Prudkova. If I remember her surname correctly, she is from Latvia, and they filmed about the First Chechen War. Not about the first, but about the Chechen war in Grozny. The name of that documentary is Barzak. He told me that if the Kadyrov soldiers took him prisoner, then they, and if they understood that this man could be a sniper, they would break his hands. They would put him on the floor, put his foot down and break his arm until it was broken to the bone. Alexander told me that they mistook Mantas for a sniper. For some reason I thought that they would torture him and torture him the way the Kadyrov do. We were very anxious not to let the Kadyrovites know that he had been taken prisoner so that Mantas would not be recognized, because Mantas was a personal enemy of Kadyrov after the documentary Barzak. He was a personal enemy of Kadyrov. Not only after that, but also because Mantas helped the Chechens who fought against Kadyrov. He helped them when they were abroad, put in prisons or deported. He knew families and entire families, and as he could, he helped these people. As far as I know, Kadyrov declared him a personal enemy. I don't think that death would be worse. I think that Anya would not have survived in these conditions. Then she would also be taken prisoner. Most likely, they would kill. Anya told me, "I'm coming back." Anya said that she was in the morgue where she took Mantas. She searched for him under aerial bombardments, from curfew to curfew, from morning to evening. It lasted 5 days. And then that's where she stopped, looking for him. She knew and had all the lists where everyone was located and to whom she addressed. She also gave all this to the investigation, where the FSB officers were, where the Russians were, where the Buryats were, and where the Kadyrovites were. Because she ran and said she was looking for her husband, she was always told that they did not know such a thing, had not seen it, and so on. But she got them so much that at one point, they said, "We found your husband." And he, as I understood, was thrown somewhere on some garbage heap with mortar shrapnel wounds. He was shot. He was tortured. He was shot later, and then, probably to cover tracks, yes. And they probably also put the body under mortar fire, so it would look like he died accidentally.
Tell me, you were there. I remember the 2022, and I remember your posts on Facebook when you were going to Cannes for the film festival. I remember these photos, and you took this film to Cannes.
Well, it wasn't only me.
Well, there was the whole team, but you were one of them. Did the audience perceive the film the way you wanted it to? Did they get this message? I think you were hoping for some feedback. Was it exactly as you imagined it? Was it different?
I was in Cannes. I didn't think how it would be received. The film needed to be seen. But the hall gave a standing ovation. Yes, after the end, people left. I saw that some people left, but documentary, how to say it, author's film, it is tough to take in, yes. There was not a very good sound, not very good one. And when the sound is bad, that film is not perceived as the director wanted it. I saw some people leave during the screening, but almost the entire hall remained and applauded standing up after they watched the film. We had a great honor because the director of the Cannes Film Festival personally presented our film. He approached each one of us and expressed his words of gratitude. Therefore, the audience accepted it as the film Mantas wanted to show.
Do you think Mantas' sacrifice was worth telling the tragedy of Mariupol and to do it in herd pursuit? In the same year when the invasion happened and when Mariupol continued to be destroyed, people continued to die.
I understand that at that time, it was crucial to get there and show the whole world how it was. Therefore, if you asked Anya about it, she would say yes. Now, I also think that this sacrifice was not in vain. But if Anya had also died there, I probably wouldn't have thought so. Because what Anya did was even more valuable than what Mantas himself has done.
Why?
Because Anya managed to get him out of there, she wanted to. She wrote me text messages when she was preparing this entire way out of the occupation. Through Russia, delivering the Mantas body to Lithuania. It was like a military operation. I have the text somewhere. She told me, "I will carry him. I will carry him in my arms because he is worthy of it. He is worthy even to carry him in my arms. I want the world to see him and to be able to say goodbye to him."
Iryna, how does it feel to be a volunteer 24/7?
Yeah, it has been for the past 10 years.
Now you live in Pokrovsk. It is the Donetsk region. This is, in fact, the front line. This is the last stop of the train. It doesn't go any further. And there are regular attacks on Pokrovsk. I see your...
Not only landing and exploding, planes are shot down over our heads, and our air defense and enemy missiles also fly over us.
Why do you live there? When will you go to the relatively safe areas of Ukraine? Why do you continue to risk your life?
Because my husband is there.
What is your husband doing there?
He is serving in the 59th Brigade. He volunteered since the full-scale invasion. At first, I had his parents, who are elderly, who had to undergo operations and so on. I lived with them for some time and did all this to be with my husband. I already transported them. At first, they were in Mykolaiv, but I transported everything there. Then I went to Berlin, where we had 2 screenings, Mariupolis-1 and Mariupolis-2. He called me and said that we were being transferred to Pokrovsk. So I left as there were still some things to do. I left Berlin and went urgently to meet my husband. We stayed together in Mykolaiv for a week, and then he went to Pokrovsk. I came back and finished all the matters with his parents. It is my 2nd year in Pokrovsk.
To live in Pokrovsk is very risky. To survive a day is a blessing. You are under attacks constantly.
Yes, if our rocket flies, it can also be shot down. Then it can also be shot down over us. It's the same with fighter jets because it whistles in the sky. We hear blast waves even underground. My friend, his call sign is physicist. He and I have been together since Kiev 2 in the 2014, and I told him, you know, we already know everything. How bombs fall in Avdiivka, and this wave is coming up to Pokrovsk. We hear it, but I hear the landings on the ground. There are such things you do not understand when there is no impact on the ground. There is no explosion in the sky, but an explosive wave passes. It passes and shakes houses. It seems like an earthquake, and the windows open. My windows are never closed. He told me these are explosions underground. I can't say anything more. We hear Avdiivka, and I have a lot of friends there, with whom I have been since 2014. I'm also in touch with them around the clock, and they text me pluses so that I don't have to worry. We heard Avdiivka and bombs, planes flew to Avdiivka, and heavy artillery that was working. Also, it constantly flies around the Pokrovsk area and the town.
How do you live with it?
It's tough, very tough.
These are constant, sleepless nights. You are constantly being shot at. You constantly live in the mode that I will be killed now.
I could have left, right?
That's exactly what I mean.
I could also go abroad or be with my daughters in Kiev. Yes, I could live anywhere. I have a lot of friends, including our military families, whom I have been helping since 2014. Now, I'm even closer to the front line. There, I can do more things for the servicemen than I can at a distance.
In your photo reports, I see that you receive parcels from different countries around the world with different things. You constantly think and prepare books to send. As a volunteer, you make all those reports to whom, what, how. I see a lot of civilians and children there. Who are these people? Why do they stay there?
These are the families of our military and our social circle. They stay because their parents serve there, and Mariupol residents are among them. I'm also very worried about these children, and sometimes I have disagreements with my girlfriends. I say it is impossible and they should get out, especially those with children, even more so. Well, for now they don't agree with me, and the children stay there. It is my pain. Also, I am monitoring the Pokrovsk telegram channels where people write what they need around the clock. I care a lot about these families.
Recently, the film 20 Days in Mariupol got the British BAFTA award. What do you think about it? What do you think of this achievement? Is it a great victory for Ukraine? This is important. And again, Mariupol. And even when there are speculations that people are tired of news from Ukraine, people are tired of the war, what do you think of such a word?
It's very cool. I am thrilled, and there are a lot of our friends in this film, including the family of a classmate of my youngest daughter. That girl was hit by aerial bombardment in the maternity hospital. Nastya and her brother are there. Her parents are there in this film, and her husband is there. She and many other people we know in this movie, but I didn't watch it. I cannot. I can't watch war movies. I can't because it all hurts. Usually I want to watch some comedies. Why comedy? Because I want my mental health to have a chance to recover as well. I've had enough war in my life. I couldn't watch the film. It is my opinion. I respect that the people who filmed it deserve to get the world's top filmmakers awards.
What do you think of Britain's assistance to Ukraine in this war? You have probably met British volunteers or British military personnel.
Mostly media.
How do you generally assess the participation of this country in Ukraine's struggle for its independence and for its existence?
Ukraine is now defending the freedom of the whole world. And if there were more help, it would be easier for us to win this war. We must say thank you 1,000 times to every country that helps, right? But everyone should understand that such a small country, which was left without weapons, without everything, now Ukraine defends the entire world. If we fall, it will be the Third World War. If there is a Third World War, it means all the countries will be involved. We are very grateful to Britain for helping us. But if they would give us a few planes, we would not be able to hold the Donetsk region without them. Donetsk region is a territory that has been fighting for its independence for 10 years. Thanks to the Donetsk region, the war has not yet reached the Polish, Romanian and other borders. If you will give us fighter jets, I will be endlessly grateful.
How do you imagine Ukraine's victory?
I once had a call from one of our commanders from Mariupol, and he told me, Ira, we are going, they are attack aircraft, we are going in the direction of Mariupol. I cried so much. I can't express how I was wailed. It isn't easy to explain. It's hard to find the words. I howled so much, I howled out of the joy that our army was going in Mariupol's direction. It was probably the happiest day in my life for all 52 years. In a month, I will be 53 years old, and I don't remember such a day when I was like this. I have everything that was here. It all appeared out in one fell swoop. It seems to me that this day will come someday. But will I live to see him? And I want this day to come at least in my daughters' lives, because we have been doing everything for this for 10 years. Maybe I won't live to see it, or maybe I will. But they will not stop there. They will fire at us as they have fired at Israel for 50 years. The war will not end there because we will liberate the territory. But we will always be at war. Until Putin dies. Forgive me for this. Maybe the country won't change. Maybe their government won't change either. But maybe they'll stop shelling Ukraine after victory. I hope so. But even if I live to this victory, I understand that I will not rest in this life. Because we will have to return to Mariupol. We will have to rebuild it. And this will also be such a volunteer movement when necessary. I understand that all countries will help, but now we are homeless. We are homeless. We have nowhere to live. We have nothing left. And we have more than 3,000 square meters of real estate just for business, not to mention business and housing. We still haven't received compensation. I don't know how my daughters' lives will turn out. But now we live not for our pleasure, not for our own sake, but for the sake of our children and our grandchildren living in a free country. I already told you that back in the 2013, yes, I told my whole family that if my life and all our property, which is necessary for our children and grandchildren to live in a free country, then so be it.
Дякую вам. I'm Jenny and you watched my podcast. Today I talked to Iryna Prudkova, journalist, filmmaker and producer. Please do subscribe, share and comment. I'm very interested to read every comment. Thank you.